Hello, my name is Hugh Tonge and welcome to episode 4 of Conversations with Auditors, our podcast where we look at the new trends, opportunities and new ways of working which are impacting the audit profession. And look, when we think about the audit profession, we often think about reviewing historical information, but today we're going to do a bit of crystal ball gazing and look towards the future and all things future of work related. And to do that, I'm joined today by my colleagues Emma O'Driscoll, partner in our audit practice and member of our Future of Work Steerco, and Susan Moylan from our People and Change function, who's going to hopefully bring some real world experience to the conversation. So guys, thanks both for joining me today. Guys, when I was researching this podcast, it was hard to get away from the kind of elephant in the room that is generative AI and how that's going to impact us in the future. And there's a huge amount of information around how generative AI is going to impact jobs in the future and make jobs obsolete. But I suppose the more shocking and surprising statistic that I came across was that almost 1/3 of people believe that generative AI has a negative impact on their work-life balance. And Susan, are you in this 31%?
No, and I was really surprised because I saw that particular stat as well. I've read articles lately and it says that generative AI is helping with work-life balance, because what it's doing is allowing organisations to shape tailored well-being packages for people. So that stat really surprises me. I know I can only talk about my job and our role in consulting. We deal with large data sets and AI is already helping us kind of undertake thematic analysis of those data sets, which means less time with spreadsheets and more time in conversations with clients, which is much better for me. What about you, Emma?
I agree, Susan. Yeah, AI can free up time for more valuable work. It can automate tedious tasks and give answers to common questions, suggest improvements to how we do things. And we could all use that time differently. It can also do things like helping with scheduling, helping with workload management, and all of that is undoubtedly really useful for work-life balance. However, if you think about technology, it has had a questionable impact on work-life balance by really blurring boundaries. So how we manage AI will be critical. Just because I track my sleep in my Fitbit doesn't necessarily mean I'm sleeping any better. So I think as we all start to use AI more, we need to be really disciplined and considered in our use of it. There's lots of benefits, loads of them, but there's also risks and challenges. And as leaders, it's really important that we're aware of the pros and the cons of using AI.
Yeah, look, I suppose there's often a lot of common misconceptions around what AI does, and particularly around generative AI. I suppose what are some of the key themes and trends we're seeing coming out in this space, and what might we expect in the future?
It's interesting actually, because our KPMG CEO Outlook report this year showed that 73% of CEOs say that generative AI is the top of their investment wish list. So we know it's being talked about at the highest level, so it's going to have an impact. And actually was reading something just recently about Singapore, that the Singapore government are going to send people who are over 40 back to school to learn the new technology trends due to the impact that AI is having on the future of work and the jobs out there, which is really interesting. In terms of who is going to be impacted then, I suppose it might be surprising to hear that jobs that need degrees will be impacted more than those jobs where you don't need degrees. So that's one thing that we're seeing. AI is likely to change the skills that we need in the future. It's going to impact the jobs that we need in the future. Some jobs aren't going to exist.
Yeah.
Some jobs will be created that we may not even know about at this point. And I think it's a really good opportunity for organisations much more to have a skills-based approach. If you think what generative AI can do and looking at massive data sets and thinking about the on-demand skills that are going to be needed in the future, I think a lot of organisations are going to be enabled like never before to do these things. I think the key thing with all of this is that humans and the technology need to work together. And people are concerned and people don't like change sometimes. So it's really important that we help guide people as much as possible, and strong change management. And one thing I would say, it's not all about AI, the future of work. There's some really interesting other trends that are happening at the moment. For example, organisations are likely to recruit on a skills-based approach rather than going for people with degrees. So that's something we potentially haven't seen before. Also, in the past, you got a job and you got promoted and you got promoted and you moved jobs and you got promoted and then you retired. That kind of pattern, we're likely in the future to see that not happening as much. You know, people are having breaks, sabbaticals, more experienced people potentially want to try an area that they don't have much experience in, which may be at a lower level. You'll maybe see people who have less experience come in at a higher level because they have a specific skill set. So I think working patterns and stuff will change as well.
Yeah, and I think we've definitely seen that. There's, you know, you see a lot of these kind of references that the one career per life is gone, and that it won't be strange now to have multiple careers in one lifetime. But so Emma, what do you think about the whole kind of how this AI is impacting the audit profession?
Yeah, well, there was a McKinsey study out recently that said 1 in 16 workers may need to change role by 2030. And it's all of the things that you talked about, Susan. I know some of it's AI, and we talk so much about AI, but there are other trends that COVID really accelerated during the pandemic. Firstly, and obviously, there's hybrid working and where we all work. Remote, office, and all of that. And secondly, there's the massive shift to e-commerce, the shift to online. We all do so much of our life online now. We do our banking online. We can effectively go to the cinema online. We can go to the doctor online. We can go to the gym online. So all of that has had such an impact on things like transport, logistics, online security. And then thirdly, there's the online automation, AI, and digitization that has a huge impact on us as a profession, on the finance profession. But I think to unpack the future of work, you have to think about how those three things work together rather than AI on its own. I think that's how you start to look into the years ahead. Maybe we just talk about AI the most because it's the hardest to understand.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I won't dwell on it much longer, but if we look at what we're doing in KPMG when it comes to generative AI, what are the sort of, I suppose, tools we're seeing that are going to be available to us, hopefully in the near future?
So we've forged alliances with Microsoft and MindBridge and others to develop innovative AI solutions to make sure that we're on the cutting edge of what's now and what's next. Our strategy is and always has been to use automation and AI to focus on risk and to drive audit quality. We already use Data Snipper, which, as you know, Hugh, is a really powerful AI tool that automates certain audit procedures.
The days of ticking and bashing are slowly coming to an end.
Which we're all very happy about. And then MindBridge is our new tool that we'll use alongside Data Snipper. That takes an AI-enabled risk assessment approach, looking at journals and year-end transactions to make sure that we focus on the transactions and the specific things that carry the most risk. And then we'll have our own version of ChatGPT, which is our KPMG Clara AI tool. And we'll use Microsoft Copilot also. But I think also it's not just about how we'll use AI in our own business. What's important as auditors is what's happening in our clients' businesses. And from an automation perspective, what they're doing. We need to understand how clients will embed automation and AI in their own financial reporting processes. And then as auditors, we have to respond to that. So it's the tools that we have, but our response to clients' AI as well, that's vital.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a huge challenge coming into the future about how we really integrate our systems with our client systems. And I know there's huge projects and huge strides being made in that regard. I want to just come back to one item that you meant before we started going down this Gen AI rabbit hole, and it's around the whole hybrid model. And you know, like every week we're seeing a new headline on the front of the FT with large global organisations appearing to really battle back against what is this sort of hybrid working model that we've come so familiar with over the past couple of years. Like, are we on the way back to 5 days in the office?
There definitely has been a shift, and I can feel the shift. Yeah. You know, we work with a lot of clients, and there definitely seems to be more of an office presence, which I personally think is a good thing. You know, that mix and given that flexibility. I'm sure we can all remember the COVID days, sitting lonesome by our laptops. It was all about grim. Yeah. So I definitely think that having an office presence and being able to actually meet people face to face, actual humans, is a great thing. I know that 64% of CEOs would prefer full-time back in the office. Okay. And you can understand why in terms of innovation, collaboration, a lot of graduates and training and that type of thing. And it's that informal learning, I suppose, is something that you miss when working from home. But there's a lot of stats and there's a lot of articles on this particular area. And I think at the moment, 50% of the workforce are office-based and 30% want to be.
Wow.
And I think the key thing here is Another stat, and it's another 30%, 30% of people don't really see the point in going to the office. It's like anything else. If you're stuck in the middle of a task, why sit for an hour and a half potentially commuting somewhere to sit in front of the laptop that you could maybe do at home? But I think that mix is definitely important. What about you?
Yeah, there's so much in it. Interestingly, and just anecdotally, I was with a client on Friday afternoon who said that this week they're announcing in their organisation and mandating that employees come back to the office 5 days a week. And that's the first person or client or CFO that I've met since March 2020, so 4 years now, where they're mandating and rolling out 5 days.
Wow, okay.
So, just one story, but just maybe showing a direction of travel. There's no easy answer to this. Like, every year, the KPMG CEO survey has lots of statistics, loads of statistics, and there's always generally one that jumps out and kind of gets to the pulse of what people are talking about and what we hear and pick up from our client base and in boardrooms and in our own organisation. And I think that one that you alluded to is one of them, Susan. 2/3 of employers want people back in the office, and only 1/3 of employees want. It's a big disconnect. So I'll give you two views on it. I guess from an employee perspective, leaders need to recognise that autonomy is really important to people, and having some flexibility is important in people's lives. There are some structural problems at the moment in Irish society: housing, long commutes, inadequate childcare, and hybrid working does go a long way to easing some of those problems. That said, on the other hand, there is just no replacement for working together. At KPMG, we're a people business and we hire almost 500 graduates a year. Wonderful, clever, bright, smart graduates, but inexperienced people.
Yeah.
And we make a commitment to each of those graduates that we'll give them an outstanding training with excellent clients, and we take that responsibility incredibly seriously. And there is just no doubt that being in person with your team, with your clients, with your colleagues is the best way to make the most of that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you said, anecdotally, we're definitely seeing the impact, especially when teams get busier. Like, you can really see that the valuable sort of learning lessons that people are getting on the job, it really does shine through. But that being said, people do love flexibility, and it is hard to take it away. So maybe, Susan, looking at both home and abroad, what are the sort of flexible initiatives we're seeing coming down the track, and what we might expect to see in the future?
There's so many. I suppose my favourite one that I've come across is the concept of a 4-day working week.
Jesus.
So Forbes have cited this as one of the up-and-coming new exciting benefits that actually works in terms of attracting and retaining talent. And there's loads of other ones. There's organisations who give wellbeing days, gym membership, sabbaticals, and lots of other things. But the 4-day week is something that I thought was really interesting. And they talk about a concept of 100-80-100. So you get 100% of your salary for 80% of the time, but you expect 100% of the productivity or commitment. So it's a two-way thing, very much.
It sounds like it's very much buy-in from all sides around a system like that.
Yes, and very much an engagement method in order to start those conversations with employees. In Belgium, for example, they have legislated for the 4-day week. So they've went down the compressed route. So if you do 40 hours in a week over 5 days, they have said that public and private sector employees can go for the 40 hours over 4 days. But it's different, and a lot of countries are trialling it at the moment. I know in the UK they did a 6-month trial, and 92% of the organisations who were involved in that trial have decided to continue with the 4-day week.
Wow.
And if we think from an Irish perspective, there's a recruitment company, Sligo based. They have implemented the 4-day working week. They have had really good results, 27% increase in productivity. Their wellness scores have increased by 33%. Their amount of single day absences have pretty much disappeared. So there is a lot out there. So Forbes and Gartner have said it's one of the biggies coming down the line.
Emma?
Well, Hugh, you won't be shocked to hear we haven't been considering it at KPMG, and I'm not aware of any clients who have been, but I have read a lot about it, and it does sound does sound interesting. And lots of road to run in it. People will be keeping an eye. And look, you have to be open-minded about these things. If we've learned anything from the pandemic, it's that change comes along really quickly and unexpectedly, and when we're not looking for it. The 40-hour week has been around since Henry Ford offered people $5 to work 8 hours a day in the 1920s, and others followed suit. So, these changes come along when you least expect. In terms of initiatives more widely, hybrid working has brought so much flexibility, and not just in that narrow sense of do I work at home or do I work in the office, but the time of day that people can go to work, the time of day that people work, the amount of travel that people do. So I wonder if the next year or two will be more about settling down those changes. I hear a lot, and I know we talk a lot internally about the impact those changes have had on organisational culture. So will the main area of initiatives for the next year or two be getting hybrid working in a way that works for employees, employers, and ultimately for culture?
Yeah, because I suppose it is a challenge in professional services to implement initiatives of that nature. It is not straightforward for an industry like ours to bring something like that in, is it?
It's not, no, and I think also with the size of organisations make initiatives like that more difficult as well. The bigger the organisation, the harder it is to do. But you do always have to keep thinking about these things and looking at them.
Yeah. Flexibility is one thing. A lot of people have seen there's a massive hole in the ground at the top of Harcourt Street where our new premises is going in. What can we expect to see from that that's really going to attract people to come into the office and really make the best use of their time when they are in the office?
Yeah, well, I could go on about this all day, Hugh, so I'll just say three things maybe if you let me. So firstly, togetherness. For all of our Dublin-based employees to be in one building for the first time in almost 30 years, so long before any of us joined the organisation, to have all functions, all sectors under one roof just brings massive opportunity to work together. And I think that's going to be great. Then the quality of the spaces. The building has an amazing space for training, and the training suite is really just best in class. KPMG is the best training firm in the country, and we will now have a first-class training suite to underpin that. And I think it looks really good. I will have lots of spaces for teamwork, for project work, so that when people are in the office, they're together, they're collaborating, they're working together. Client collaboration suites too, and innovation suites, similar to what we have at the moment in Platform X, but on a bigger scale and under the one roof. And the last thing that I'm really excited about in the building is light. There's so many studies about light that show the impact that it has on our well-being and our mental health. We don't need the studies though. We all know that from our own lives and the stretch in the evenings and the difference it makes. And the building is full of light, absolutely flooded with it, and lots of terraces where people can have lunch or even have meetings, depending on the time of year. So I'm already looking forward to having a coffee up at the training floor and looking out at the views from up there. It's going to be great.
Sounds
just
great.
need the sunshine.
Yeah, sounds great. And
can't do anything about that.
Yeah, and look, hopefully the grand stretch in the evening will make things all the better. But look, when we physical space and facilities are of huge importance. But what else are we seeing organisations doing, again, both home and abroad, to try and really attract and retain? Really, I think it's the key, the best talent in the market at the moment. Attracting and retaining talent is the big topic, I have to say. We did a global survey of employees across all sectors. And it really seems that we've moved away from, I'm sure you've heard of the Great Resignation, to a time of the Great Reconsideration, we're calling it. And this is where employees are really starting to think and consider about what drives them at work and what drives them at home. And I think employees now are really kind of looking for a more holistic offer from organisations at the moment. So I suppose one big thing for organisations to consider is, at the moment we have 5 generations in the workforce. Wow, okay. I hadn't thought about it like that previously.
5 generations, massive. So what some organisations are doing at the moment is taking the opportunity to review and update their employee value proposition. So what I mean by that is just the value an employee perceives as getting from an organisation for providing employment. And there's an awful lot involved in that employee value proposition. And with 5 generations in the workforce, it's going to be a challenge for organisations to think, well, how do I retain and attract those 5 generations? Because everybody likes different things. So I know that, that employee value proposition, really important. What can be really important to retain people and attract people is linking what people do to a purpose. The values an organisation has and the culture, I know you mentioned culture earlier, really, really important to attract and retain people in terms of their happiness at work. Development, everybody wants career paths, wants to know what the future holds for them. So that's important. I know you talked about learning suite in the new KPMG office. So having opportunities to take advantage of that is going to be really important. Obviously, compensation and benefits is really important. And I know we've talked about hybrid, but that flexibility, I think I've read a load of research at the moment to suggest that flexibility has topped salary in terms of attracting talent at the moment. So that's a massive, massive thing for people. It's just interesting. I know I mentioned happiness there. But happiness and well-being is a really strong thing that's coming out at the moment. Some research suggests that 90% of employees would make a move somewhere else if the work-life balance wasn't right. So 90%. You know, it used to be all about the money and the salary, but now it's very much that flexibility piece, that well-being piece, and that culture and feeling happy.
Wow. What do you think is top of our employees' value proposition? We don't have 5 generations, but what do you think is the overriding one?
5 generations, minding 2 generations at home is tough going. So five in the office is, I hadn't heard that one before. You can see why it's so difficult when you put it like that. Clearly since the pandemic, people's expectations and people's wishes have shifted. We talk a lot more about well-being, and people's priorities are different. So it's really important that we're alive to that. And it's that constant juggle or balance between the impact on your personal well-being of having a really flexible role and being at home more, and then on the organisation and culture of having people in the office and together and getting that balance right.
And when I talked about having a link to a purpose, if we think of ESG at the moment, that's not going away anywhere. And in terms of attracting talent, especially as we move into the future, that authentic organisational approach to really doing your best in terms of that ESG piece is going to be so important as well.
And it's funny you say that when you mention ESG and sustainability, it's a skill set that's so highly sought after now in the marketplace. And it kind of got me thinking, that's one example of something that has come up at a huge speed and caught a lot of people off guard. But what are some of the other things we really need to be thinking about in terms of the skills that our people need to have into the future?
Well, very much, as you said, that ESG skill set is going to be extremely important. The use of technology is going to be extremely important. And I'm not just speaking for myself there, that's a massive need. So it's thinking about what the shape of the workforce is going to look like in the future, and then making sure you have skills to match what is going to be required. I think there's growing concerns from business leaders that they don't have the right capability in-house at the moment to deliver on their future objectives. So always having that future focused look is really important. And middle managers have always been important. They will continue to be important. Middle managers are a really good conduit by which you get feedback to see how our workforce is feeling about things. So middle managers are going to be extremely important moving forward in terms of skills. If we think about the hybrid model and equipping leaders with the knowledge, skills and behaviours they need in that managing a hybrid workforce is going to be extremely important. So, showing trust. It's the softer side of people management, showing empathy, accountability, being able to set performance metrics and doing that quite clearly, and expectation management is going to be really important moving forward, and communication.
Okay.
I think from a from our perspective, understanding the output of technology is key, not just being able to use the technology. We're at a really exciting time in our audit practice where technology is changing how we all work very quickly. I mentioned earlier the sophisticated tools that we're adopting to make sense of just the explosion of data in our market and in our clients. But it's not just enough to be able to use them. We need to be able to interpret the output of the technology, the output of the AI, and then to use that to provide insights and findings to our clients. And then secondly, one that really resonates to me and I think is really important and underrated is curiosity. I do worry that the more time we spend being task focused, you mentioned it earlier, and this task focused work is a real bugbear of mine, but being task focused and remote working means that we're not as focused on why we do things. I think being curious is fundamental to individual and organizational performance because it makes us all more adaptable, it makes us think more deeply about why we're doing something, it makes us solve problems, and it goes back to enjoying what we do. It's a bit more fun and ultimately better for our well-being. Yeah,
absolutely. And I want to bring it then, just to bring that piece then to something we often kind of hark back to, and what impact we think that is going to have, and a lot of what we discussed today on people who are going to be joining the audit profession, particularly new graduates coming in, coming into us, coming into other firms, and how the profession is going to shape around them in terms of these new and emerging ways of working and technologies.
Yeah, so the fundamentals haven't changed. This is about training really bright young professionals to understand how business operates, to understand how business seeks out commercial opportunities, how businesses manage risk, and then accurately present those in a set of financial statements. So the fundamentals and the basics around skills and attributes are still there, but there's lots of upside in workplace changes for graduates. A bit more autonomy because of hybrid work, less grunt work, more use of technology to make work more interesting. I heard Jane Fraser, the CEO of Citibank, on a podcast recently, and she described AI as like an intern. So like an intern, you want AI to give you good analysis, doing research, preparing briefing notes, and behind the scenes, pulling lots of information together, but not necessarily making decisions.
Yeah.
And at KPMG, we hire and train decision makers, and we always have, and we always will.
Oh, great. Look, there's a huge amount of food for thought there and what we've gone through. But look, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a bit nervous and apprehensive about what's coming down the tracks at us, what's coming to the future, and at the pace of change as well can often be very frightening. If I was to ask you if you'd one overriding emotion when it comes to the future of work, what would it be?
I think excitement, to be honest.
Okay.
Because anything that takes me less time on spreadsheets and information and more time to spend with clients and talking to people and building relationships is all good with me. So all good, looking forward to it.
Energised, actually.
Okay.
Really energised. I think I'd be scared if you said that I had to go back home and sit in my bedroom working for the next year. But no, I during the pandemic, we all started to think and believe that work was something that happened on a laptop. And if you weren't task focused, you weren't really working, and work was a screen. I get energy, and I think most of us do, from being with people, from being with our colleagues and being with our clients. So a world where AI does lots of the behind the scenes task focused work, and people in KPMG or other organisations are more empowered to focus on issues, on solving problems, on building relationships, is much more motivating for me. So energised is how I'm feeling about it.
Great. Look, I think we've covered a huge amount there today. So guys, thanks a million for joining me to discuss what is an emerging and developing topic, and one that kind of moves at a rate of knots. And look, thanks to everyone for listening and tuning into us today. If you have any thoughts or questions on what's been discussed, do feel free to reach out to your usual KPMG contact. And thanks again for listening.